morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this broadcast. Those of you on Worshipify, sorry you had the music a little extra time. We had to wait for YouTube to catch up with us. Way behind the times at YouTube. But anyway, here we are all together and ready to take your biblical, theological, and worldview questions. Doing it with a smile today, and we are not lethargic, calm, placid, imperturbable, unflappable, unshakable, unexcitable, hypo-dispensationalist. Not at all. We rightly divide, proudly, confidently, ready to go. And glad you have joined us wherever it is you're from. Always have the joy of fellowshipping with little people from around the world. So right here in Taos, New Mexico, to wherever you are, we take your biblical, theological, and worldview questions and are excited to do so. Hey, Sunday is, I don't know what the date is, first Sunday in December. This coming Sunday, I'll start a new series, a 3-week series, get us through the Christmas season. We're going to focus on the Magi a little bit. The mysterious Magi is what we're going to talk about. And we'll be looking at things like, let me look up my notes here. Who were they? Who were Magi in general? I think that's what we'll talk about this Sunday. Because you have Magi in the book of Daniel as well. In fact, at one point, Daniel himself is called a Magi. And so we'll look at the identity of Magi in general and try to, narrow it down then to those particular Magi on December the 5th. Thanks, Deb. And we will look at when the Magi arrived on another Sunday, probably the Sunday after that. That would be, the 12th. We'll probably look at when those Magi arrived in Bethlehem and some of their things of the arrival. And then I think we'll probably talk maybe on the 19th or so, we'll talk about the timing of their arrival from Daniel's prophecy of 483 years, and then the Messiah will be cut off, and what they, the following the star and all that kind of stuff. So we'll have some interesting things to look at over the next few weeks in the mysterious Magi, our December Sunday morning series. And we'll continue through 1 Peter and all that. But this is Thursday, and on Thursdays we have Bible study at night, and we'll meet at 7 p.m. and tonight, 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And we will be looking at Second Timothy. I'll get it there. 2 Timothy. I got too many numbers going on all right now doing 2 Timothy, 2 Peter, and 1 John. But we're going to look at 2 Peter. Hey, a few days ago, actually, I think it was, maybe last week, we talked about transhumanism. It's come up a number of times. Perhaps, did you see the news that just came out? Here's an article from this Weiss Institute. I know nothing about them. On November the 29th, team builds first living robots that can reproduce. AI, artificial intelligence, designed xenobots reveal entirely new form of biological self-replication, promising for regenerative medicine. Let's just read a little bit here. To persist, life must reproduce. Over billions of years, organisms have evolved many ways of replicating, from budding plants to sexual animals to invading viruses. Now, scientists at the University of Vermont, Tufts University, and the Weiss Institute for Biologically Inspired Engineering at Harvard University have discovered an entirely new form of biological reproduction and applied their discovery to create the first ever self-replicating living robots. The same team that built the first living robots has discovered that these computer-designed, hand-assembled organisms can swim out of their tiny dish, find single cells, gather hundreds of them together, and assemble baby xenobots inside their Pac-Man-shaped mouth. That, a few days later, became new xenobots that look and move just like themselves. Very interesting thoughts and concepts there as it relates to transhumanism. And one wonders how long God would allow the world to continue with transhumanism taking root. Now, let's think about this the last time. The Lord said, well, I'm gonna rephrase that. Let me back up. Concerning the end times, the Lord said, as in the days of Noah, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. Now, with that, as in the days of Noah, there was a different kind of transhumanism that was taking place. And God said, I am not going to allow this to happen forever. Come to the last days, as in the days of Noah, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. And so, will this issue of living robots that can reproduce, transhumanism, will that be the issue at which God says, enough is enough? I am not going to allow it. It's time to come in and take control once again. Now let's add one more factor to this. When Adam and Eve ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, they were removed from the garden. They were removed from the garden because God did not want them to eat of the tree of life in the fallen state that they're in. Could it be that this issue of we can't get to the tree of life, so we'll make our own tree of life? Could that be the impetus which causes God to say it's time to come out? Now, I wouldn't then jump to the conclusions that, God's about to wrap this thing up. Maybe he is. I hope he is. Maranatha, come quickly, Lord Jesus. Amen. But I also remember that when the kind of original transhumanism came about, which again is a different kind of transhumanism, God said 120 years. I give you 120 years. And that was enough time basically for that transhumanism to the transhumanism of the Nephilim to totally infiltrate. Could it be that he gives enough time for this to totally infiltrate as well? I don't know. Interesting thoughts, interesting things to put together. Nothing we can do but speculate upon it, but it certainly is a interesting kind of thing. Even without a prophetic view, that's interesting right there. Team builds first living robots that can reproduce. AI designed xenobots reveal entirely new form of biological self-replication. I don't really know. I'd have to read the article to make sure I'm reading this right. But is it really biological self-replication when there's not really bios? There's not really life in there? I don't know if that's the right terminology. But I think these things are going to become so closely aligned that separating life from artificial intelligence is going to become very, very difficult. Now, let's talk about the medical ethics of this for believers like me and you. We don't, most of us, there may be an exception in the audience, most of us are not involved in the day-to-day creating of AI designed xenobots. That's not what we do. But as we begin to take care of ourselves, our own physical bodies, I think we're going to have to be aware that the entire direction of the medical community is going to be moving towards transhumanism rather than finding ways to aid the body that God gave us to keep itself healthy. They are going to be doing artificial means of keeping the body healthy. We've had some degree of this already, and we haven't had a problem with it. Okay, I'm going to get an artificial knee. I'm going to get a new lens put in the eye. I'm going to get a pacemaker, whatever, where we put some things from the outside to kind of mechanically, so to speak, make the body work better. But is it going to cross the line so much that really it is becoming a different kind of being? If so, those of us who are Christians probably would want to say, no, I don't want to become a different kind of being. I am created in the image of God, and I don't want to create myself in the image of man. And so are we going to have to develop an outside medical awareness and system of our own, where we have the old country doctor, so to speak, who knows how the human body works, and we begin to refuse the things of the medical world? Will it come to that? It's all interesting speculation is what it is, but it's things that, to have a biblical worldview, I think we probably ought to begin to take and to consider along the way. And now we make our way down to San Antonio. See the old Padre, the Padre of old San Antonio. I don't want to get the Padre being old here, but the Padre of San Antonio, of old San Antonio. Would 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 4 be before the tribulation, after the rapture, or during the tribulation with God's delusion on them? Thank you. Let's see. 2 Timothy chapter 3 speaks of the last days. Know this, that the last days, perilous times it shall come. It begins to describe the men of the last days. As we looked through this in verses 1 through 4 in our Bible study, of course, I called it kind of the sociological chart as opposed to the chronological chart of the last days that we're aware of. But here's the sociological chart, describes society. Now, does it describe society after the rapture, before the tribulation, or during the tribulation, where you have this delusional aspect that God has allowed to come upon the world because there's a rejection of the truth? I think that I would put 2 Timothy chapter 3 in the last days. The real question is, when is this last days? I don't have, I should have the chart here, but I don't keep it handy. But the chart that shows rapture followed by my chronology, rapture followed by the first 4 seals, followed by the 7 years, the 70th week, the tribulation. And so this period of these fingers right here, if you will, is this period of the soon telos. It's not the end, but it's together with the end. Here's the end over here in the 7 years. 2 Timothy chapter 3, is it describing the soon telos or the telos? I think that I would go ahead and put it in the soon telos, that as soon as the rapture comes, the rapture may precipitate, if you will, this sociological age in which men are lovers of their own selves, boastful, proud, blasphemers, disobedient, all these kind of things that will take place. When you take out the church, do you take out spirituality? Probably not. I started to say you remove all spirituality, and so there's nothing to love but yourself. And there's certainly some of that that would be true, but yes, there's a different kind of spirituality. So I'm going to say these are immediately post-rapture. The last day is described in 2 Timothy chapter 3. Immediately post-rapture, which would, of course, put them prior to the ultimate delusion that comes, and yet I would say they continue on all the way to the last days. So they're introduced immediately post-rapture, and then they continue all the way through to the end, rather than waiting and coming out there in that regard. Thank you. I appreciate that. A couple of comments coming through on some of the things I was commenting on last at the beginning of the program with the Xenobots and whatnot. Transhumanism. What state should we build? What state should we build our new society? You know, I wish I knew. If here's my personal struggle. I live in a very blue state. Now, I ignore it as much as you can. You know, I live free. My taxes are cheaper probably than those of you in Texas. So, you know, okay, it works. Let's suppose, however, and I don't have a lot of confidence here, but let's suppose that the Supreme Court overturns Roe v. Wade in the current Mississippi case that they've got going. If I understand right, the verdict on that case won't come out for months and months and months, but they're having discussions about it now. But let's suppose that it is overturned. And then basically it will be left, probably I would say, it would be left to the Congress, to the courts, not to the courts, excuse me. The courts basically would get it out of their domain, and it shouldn't be in their domain anyway, I don't think. I think legislators ought to own up and do it. So it comes down, let's just suppose, there's too many assumptions here to put together, but let's suppose it comes down to the state legislators. And so then state by state, abortion could be legal. Well, I can promise you, and this is shameful and should not be. And if there are any Catholics out there, please, call the Pope or something, because New Mexico is a very Catholic state. But New Mexico would go for baby killing. It's already, kill as many babies as we can. That's the favorite thing to do. And so what if we come to a point where babies are not killed, let's say in the Midwest. The Midwest, babies are not killed. But on both coasts, babies are killed. California kills them, Oregon, Washington, it's clear. They're going to kill the babies. The Rocky Mountain states, maybe with the exception of Utah, going to kill the babies. But maybe Montana, Wyoming, they might save the babies. North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas. So that's stripped down the middle. They're probably not going to kill babies. Much of the South is not going to kill babies. Most of the Northeast is going to kill babies. Do Christians need to say, I'm not going to live in a baby-killing state? I don't want to be that close to fake Catholics. And I will take a Catholic on this any day. I will, how blunt can I put this? If you are a Catholic and promote abortion, I will say you are the biggest fake there is in the world. You should be utterly, utterly ashamed. And, honestly, I won't go there. I'll get in trouble. But here's this Catholic state which with a bunch of Catholic Democratic legislators, and they'll say kill babies really all the way up to the point of birth. Kill them, kill them, kill them. Stick those things in the garbage can, but don't use a plastic one. Oh my goodness, we got to save the environment. Put the dead baby in a paper bag, not a plastic bag. It is so sicko, the delusional party. And especially Catholics in the I don't get it. Okay, how did I get all the way over there? The question is then, do Christians need to say, I'm not going to live in that state. I've got to find a different state. I got to go to, North Dakota or Nebraska or wherever. I don't know. Is there anything safe? I see that, let's see, someone here's, Paul up in King, Wisconsin. Resistance is futile, you will be assimilated. Now, obviously, I think there's probably a little jest in all of that, but how futile is resistance? Is it, we do, and Patrick Henry didn't like this, but we do have a society in which the federal laws are going to be superior to the state laws. So does it come to the point where it doesn't matter if you live in South Dakota? You're still going to be assimilated. It's going to become a part of it. I don't know. I wish that we had strong enough states. I'm not even sure our Constitution fully allows it. I've been looking a little bit at the Lion of Liberty, Patrick Henry, and he was pretty much opposed to our Constitution, believe it or not. Very much. Give me liberty and give me death, all that in the American Revolution. When it came time for the creation of the Constitution, he thought there was way too much federal power that was given. He was much more for the Confederate Articles of Confederacy, like Articles of Confederation that we had, and he spoke against that. Was he right? Have we created a system in which we can't? There's no place in the United States you could live. I don't know. If I could say South Dakota is for the next 50 years going to be the place where Christians can live and express their faith, and I would say let's all move to South Dakota. Taxes are good, property's relatively inexpensive, the weather's pretty decent there. There's a lot of good things about those northern plains states. I'm just not sure. I'm not sure you can go there. I'm not sure there's a good place. Okay. Got away on that, and I'm going out of order just a little bit because I keep seeing these questions, and they're somewhat related. Someone asked, asked if we were going to have a theological insomniac there, and our friend Russell didn't even know what the theological insomniac was, and that's because for you, Russell, in the UK, it would be during your workday. Because it was like, about 10 to 12 mountain time, 10 to midnight mountain time. Actually, I have been thinking about it. I even have contemplated, the next week or so. I want to get back to that. I think it's going to happen. So stay tuned. I never gave much advanced announcement to those. So we'll send out the text and, get going. But take that. By grace, the By Grace man got a good point right there. June 26, 2015, the Supreme Court legalized gay marriage in all 50 states. Where do we go? Yeah, there's not a good place to run and hide. And it is because of the federal system that we have that the Supreme Court can do this. And I'm not a big fan of the Supreme Court in the sense that I like the concept of it, but what the Supreme Court has done is so many times, like in this case, they legislate. And the legislators love it when the Supreme Court does it because they're not held accountable. You know, the Supreme Court, there's no election for the Supreme Court. There's no term for the Supreme Court. It's just you do whatever you want to do. And so legislators would prefer that the Supreme Court do the dirty work. So yeah, in 2015, this gay marriage in all 50 states. Well, that's regardless of whether the state wants it or not. Nathan and I were having a conversation just yesterday, actually, in the car on the way to the office here, and he said, we need to take back marriage, and I said, yeah, and so many other things. We need to take it back because the church gave away marriage. And then it's upset that pagan legislators don't handle it like it's supposed to be handled. It's so much the church's fault on it. Anyway, back to where we are supposed to be in taking biblical, theological, and worldview questions. And we are going to get aboard onto the train, and we are ready to head to Anaheim, Azusa, and Cucamonga as we go down to Rancho Cucamonga. And we've got our friend Michael, who's got a question today. In Luke chapter 16, verse 23, we see that everyone there is Jewish. Where are the Gentiles? Are they in a different location? Luke 16, 23. Thank you, Michael. And in hell, he lifted up his eyes, being in torments, and seeth Abraham afar off, and Lazarus in his bosom. Where are the Gentiles? I think, let's look back here. We're talking the afterlife. Abraham is a Jew. Lazarus is a Jew. And the rich man is a Jew. He is a Jew in, let me check the word here, Hades. And Abraham, down later in that passage, or certainly in one of the related passages, it talks about Abraham's bosom. I would say that the argument that the Gentiles are not there is a little bit of argument from silence. I would have to, though, say that the Gentiles are right here. They're in hell. Again, remember that hell is not the lake of fire. Hell is Hades. And that's Sheol, basically. It's just the New Testament term for it. I would say they're in Sheol. As we put this together, we take Paul, and Paul said, why don't I put him in Abraham's bosom? Say, hey, there's some nice guys out there, some nice Gentiles, and surely those nice Gentiles are in Abraham's bosom. But Paul says, is Ephesians chapter 3, verse 5? No, it's not. Is it... every now and then you just have a hard time finding what you're wanting. I have found the search capabilities of Logos is not... It gets too detailed to where it doesn't work. And so this passage of scripture that I should know the reference to is not Ephesians 2:12. There we go. I knew it was for some reason I had verse 5 in mind, and so I was on a wild goose chase. But Ephesians, chapter 2, verse 12. The Gentiles having no hope without God in the world. So I think that you have to take this and say, if they're without hope, the options are, let's put all the options on the table. The options are they cease to exist, annihilation, or soul sleep, half annihilation, or they go to Hades, Sheol. If they have no hope, we can't put them in Abraham's bosom. So of those three options, annihilation, is there anything that promotes an annihilationism in the Bible? I think if we were to investigate that as a good scientist, we'd have to say, sorry, can't go with annihilationism. Soul sleep, that they just don't exist for now, but they're going to wake up later. Is there anything in that? No, I think all of the arguments that are used are really more about mouth sleep. They're not talking anymore, but their soul has departed and is in a conscious place. I think we would have a very, very tough time with annihilationism. That puts them in Hades. So it's a little bit by elimination, the process of elimination, we put them there. It is interesting that there's not that much about it. I say interesting, there's not that much about the destination of the Gentiles, but the Bible's not about the Gentiles for the most part. Never tells us about, the Indo-Chinese. So that might not be all that interesting in the end, just because it's a topic that is not discussed. I don't know. You could take my my Bible study last night from 1 John, and say, well, based upon that Bible study, what does Randy think about taxes? I saw a question pop up there. What does Randy think about taxes? Let's look at that Bible study and see. Well, you're going to find there's nothing there. I didn't talk about taxes last night, and so who knows what I think about taxes from that. And there's a degree in which we have to say, okay, I don't know. I'm a little off on that one. Thanks, Michael, down in Rancho Cucamonga. Let's go to Paul up in King, Wisconsin. Good to see you this morning. The following is from Dispensational Truth by Clarence Larkin. And he says, the fallen angels, not the devil's angels, who are reserved in everlasting chains and darkness, will be judged at this time, which Jude calls the judgment of the great day. Jude 6. When this judgment is over, the devil and his angels and all the ungodly will have been consigned to the lake of fire, and the universe purged of all evil, and righteousness shall reign supreme on the new earth. My question, Paul's question, is, since Larkin put it in the fallen angels, who are not the devil's angels, what motivated them to do what they did? And if they didn't do it at the behest of the devil, or is Larkin wrong here? Now, okay, I think if I understand that quote and that question correctly, what I would say is you've got the devil's angels, according to Larkin. You've got the devil's angels, and then you've got another group of angels he's calling fallen angels, and that's the one that was involved in the Nephilim kind of thing. And that Larkin has a separation. And so, since he has this separation, what motivated, let's say, the Class A bad angels are the devil's angels, the Class B bad angels are the Nephilim angels, the Genesis 6 angels. What motivated the Class B angels to do what they did if they didn't do it at the behest of the devil? I would say, I've not read that part on Clarence Larkin, or if I had, it's been so long that I've forgotten it. I would want Larkin to defend that point a little bit, that you've got Class A fallen angels and Class B fallen angels. There's nothing, I don't know of anything textually that would bring that about. Genesis chapter 6, you've got sons of God, B'nai Elohim. Maybe he's trying to take that, which sounds kind of like a positive statement, and not put that with the devils because it's kind of a positive statement. And so he's making a conclusion that this must be a different class of fallen angels. But I'm not sure that I would see that. I think that, when you get to, let's just take the English phrase here and look that up in this scripture. When you get to Job chapter 1, verse 6, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. Now, if you use this to make a strong separation, if you will, from sons of God and Satan also, I don't think the Hebrew would promote that. I think sons of God is going to be a very general term, which means angels, whether they be fallen or not, including Satan, for that matter. I would, my first speculation on it is I think Larkin got it wrong there. I think he maybe divided that which can't be divided. He speculated a little bit. He made an assumption. Now, I say that kind of with hesitation, and the reason is Larkin was a smart fellow, and because he was a smart fellow, he probably had an argument somewhere. The question is, did he write it down? Did he put his thought process? Sometimes when I set forth a presentation, I say, here's where I'm coming from. Here's the support. Other times I'll say something like, you'll have to take my word for it on this, or you'll have to research this one later. You'll have to, we don't have time to support this, but here's my case. Now, did Larkin have a case? And was that case good for separating those two? I don't see the case right off, but again, I want to say Larkin was a smart guy, so maybe he's got a case that I'm just not seeing, and so I'd give him the opportunity to argue it a little bit more. But at first glance, I would say I think Larkin is wrong. The assumption that he's got, and I don't have a problem with making an assumption, the assumption he's got does bring about these questions. Well, where'd these guys come from? What was their motivation? Why did they decide to do this? And it becomes almost unanswerable. That's interesting. I'll have to check that out. Mr. Paul up in King, thank you for your good question. And, now it would be the time to come to the rifleman question of the day. And our friend R.D. the RDer, Russell Driver the Right Divider, Russell the Right Dividing Rifleman. How's that? Has a question from Kent, England. We are looking forward to. There's been a lot of discussion, Russell, about bangers and mash. I suppose all of Taos is a buzz about it. Okay, all of Taos First Baptist is a buzz about the bangers and mash. Here's one of the questions that has come up. What do you bring to go along with bangers and mash? We're gonna cook the bangers and mash. But what do you bring to go along with it? And then, I should ask one more question here. Maybe it doesn't matter, but when you look at the pictures here, I see a lot of English peas there. English peas, bangers and mash, that kind of makes sense. Which gravy do you go with? Does that have mushrooms in it? No, that's onions, I guess. And, this is kind of lighter. Maybe it's just the picture there, sort of a dark gravy with, what is that? That's onions, isn't it? Onions and garlic, maybe? So I'm assuming, Russell, it needs to have a little bit of gravy-ish with it, right? And, yeah, a lot of peas Is that the best thing to go with it? What else do you do with it, or do you do anything with it? I mean, there's just a bangers and mash plate right there. Maybe that's sufficient. But there it is. I'm a cast iron guy, so I like that picture there with a lot of peas. Okay, so I'm gonna say English peas. We call them English peas, maybe because they're from England. You tell me, Russell, if I'm wrong, as we now get to the question, which is Esther chapter 6, verse 1. And it says, let me read the verse. On that night, could not the king sleep? And he commanded to bring the book of records of the Chronicles, and they were read before the king. The question, do you think this is the Chronicles that we know, or just general Chronicles, books that the kings would use in their own kingdom, totally unrelated to Chronicles of the Bible? Because why would a non-Jew have a book of Moses? Okay. I'm gonna go with, we're gonna research this just briefly here, but I'm gonna go with that this book of record of the Chronicles was the Chronicles of the Persian kingdom, and not the book of Chronicles that we have. Now, let's look at something here. Chronicles, I want to look at the word here, the Hebrew word. Chronicles is memorial. Memorial remembers. So this is the only time it's a book of Chronicles. Now, let's go to First Chronicles. Well, doesn't have what I... Devraim, I believe, is the name for it. Let's just double... I'm looking for the Hebrew name. I'm wondering if it's a totally different kind of Chronicles at all. So we look here in the Ketuvim. Here, so two words. Divrei Hayamim. I was trying to put those two words together there and didn't do a good job. Divrei Hayamim. Now this has, normally these titles come from the first words of the book, but these are let's see what Rashi has to say. Ezra wrote the book of genealogy through Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi during the 18 years from the name that Zerubbabel and Joshua the priest came to Jerusalem in the days of Cyrus I until Cyrus the son of Esther came. All of this book is for the purposes of tracing the lineage of King David and for the Levites, for gate sentries, guards, singers, how David stationed them in the, therefore, it goes, giving some of the purpose. I don't see about the name here. Let's check in First Chronicles. On the left side of your screen, I have brought up Bullinger and see if he's got a word about the name. I do not see First and Second Chronicle. Okay. Oh, yeah, right there. The name, Debrai Hayadimim, words of the days. Words of the days. The Latin name, Chronicon, from whence comes the English title, Chronicles. These books belong to quite another part of the Old Testament, do not follow the sequence of the books of the kings. Okay, it doesn't, what I think is that this Chronicles right here is totally different from the Esther chapter 6, which speaks of the books of the memorials, and they were read before the king. I think this is much more a Persian thing. I think it's totally unrelated to any book that we have. Excellent, thank you. Now, before I move on from there, I should note that Russell tells us For those of you who will be doing bangers and mash in your own home, you have to hollow out a hole in the middle of the mash and make a gravy dam reservoir that overflows like a river down the mash. Best with boiled carrots and peas. Boiled carrots and peas. Okay. We can buy, boiled, I don't know, the frozen peas and carrots mixed together. I guess it's from our English ancestry. We could get that. Okay. Yeah, we'll make sure we get the dam reservoir that overflows like a river down the mash. This seems like a very complicated meal. And furthermore, by Grace Man says eating a hot dog takes 36 minutes off your life. He read this morning, and it's got to be true. But bangers aren't really a hot dog. That's it's a sausage. A hot dog is a Class B sausage. A banger is a Class A sausage. So probably only takes like 18 minutes off your life. Thanks, Russell, for the question and the discussion there. I appreciate that. I got lots of questions here I'm not getting to. But let's see, who's next on the line? Let's go to Pastor Rick out in the Show Me State of Missouri. Do you recommend the book Absolutely Free by Zane Hodges? And what are your thoughts on the Grace Evangelical Society by Bob Wilkins? So I have not read Absolutely Free by Zane Hodges. I do like some of Zane Hodges. Most of what I've read on Zane Hodges has been in old, I call them BibSacs. What is it? Bibliotheca Sacra, I believe. Bibliotheca Sacra. And the Bibliotheca Sacra is today the Journal of the Dallas Theological Seminary, and has been since about the 30s. But Bibliotheca Sacra is a journal that existed back into the 1800s. I think I've got up through probably the mid-90s on Logos. And the old ones I really like. And Zane Hodges wrote in the older ones anyway. And he was a good thinker. He's got lots of good argumentation, puts things together. And I do hold to the free grace position, which Zane Hodges at least put forth in some regard. Now, I don't know, again, about what he's got with absolutely free. But I would say it's probably worth reading. Read it as you would with anything. Read it with a discerning eye. And question some assumptions. And when you find something, you say, that's absolute, amen. I like that, circle that. That brings it together for me. Those are the areas, especially when you ought to say, but what's the other position? Because I'm about to adopt something here, and I want to know what the opposite side is. So on those parts you really like, forget about the parts that are boring and you didn't get it and all that. Just read over that. And by the way, my practice of reading a book is if I don't understand it and I don't get it and I think it's boring, I just keep going until I get to the good stuff. It's not like I'm trying to figure out how to do your brain surgery and I really need to know that part. It's like, okay, that one does. It doesn't speak to me. So I skip that part. But you get to the part, oh, wow, amen, there it is. That's where you ought to begin to question. What else could he have said? What would the detractors of that say? What's the opposite position? Who's against this? All those kind of things. And I would look for that and try to figure that out in Zane Hodges. Now, what are your thoughts about the Grace Evangelical Society, Bob Wilkins, and Sean, Sean, we're Facebook friends. Anyway, the Grace Evangelical Society. I've been featured a couple of times in the Grace Evangelical Society magazine. They did an interview once on me on why I'm a fundamentalist. There we go. Why I'm a fundamentalist and you should be too. And asked me about fundamentalism versus evangelicalism, and a couple of other of my articles they have placed in their magazine. I sometimes follow their blog. And by sometimes, I mean 5%. I might read 5%. And I read them just according to headlines, whether it's, that might be interesting. I like the free grace position on soteriology. The Grace Evangelical Society, the problem is they don't know why they are free grace. They do take a free grace position, but they don't know why. They have adopted what basically is a right division kind of soteriology, but they don't know about right division. That is to say, they've adopted kind of a mid-acts soteriology, but they don't know anything about mid-acts. So they don't do the rest of it. So my problem with the Grace Evangelical Society, and some of you who are out there, my friends, I'm basically pro GES, except that they get too much wrong. And the reason they get too much wrong is because they have not developed their theology outside of their soteriology. And so they get into some other things and they just begin to slaughter it. Just to get it wrong. And I don't know, I may be able to show you a prime example here, but I'm not sure. Let's see here. Well, here's I was looking for an article that came out not too long ago, and I don't see it. Grace in Focus is the Faith Alone, faithalone.org. Is their website. But, I run across here. Here's one from 2018. What is ultra-dispensationalism? Let's just see. Many ultra-dispensationalists agree with the free grace message. Actually, I would say that the other way around. The free grace message is ultra-dispensationalist. Remember, we are not lethargic, calm, placid, imperturbable, unflappable, unshakable, unexcitable, hypo-dispensationalists around here. So we're not scared of it. Let's just take a quick look. I was taught dispensationalism at Dallas Theological Seminary. Who wrote this? Bob Wilkin. The view that there's a distinction between Israel and the church, that the church began in Acts 2, that God has a different law and expectations for people in the 6 dispensations, goes with the standard kind of dispensationalism. There is, however, a group of people who go beyond dispensationalism. They're called ultra-dispensationalists. That is, they're not like us. They believe that the church did not begin until Acts 28:28. Now, that in and of itself, I think you would have a hard time finding anybody who holds that position. So it's a straw man. And this is the problem. They get it wrong. It's a straw man. I don't even think Bullinger would agree with this statement. And ultra-dispensationalists are often called Bullingerites. This is the problem. They speak evil of that which they know not of, to borrow a passage from 2 Peter. In their view, only the scriptures which are directly, the only scriptures which are directly applicable to the church are the letters of Paul, and most ultras would only say that only the prison epistles are for this age. Okay, there's half truth there. Some ultras say that neither baptism nor the Lord's Supper are for the church age. Others say that the Lord's Supper is for the church age, but not baptism. That's probably a true statement. Some take a middle view between dispensationalism and ultra-dispensation. They're called mid-acts dispensationalists. Okay, sometimes the grace movement. Mid-acts dispensationalists tend to like our writings. Yes, Sean has lots of good discussions with the mid-acts folks. Ultra-dispensationalism likes some of our writings. See this article at Got Questions, this article at Wikipedia. Here are some troubling aspects of ultra-dispensationalism concerning grace. Some ultras do not believe that the Gospel of John presents the correct saving message for today. Now, if you got into that with those who hold that position, and I, by the way, wouldn't use the Gospel of John as the best place to witness from. But if Bob Wilkin sat down with these some or many, he would find out he agrees with them. That's my prophetic word. 2, they do not practice baptism. If we sat down with Bob Wilkin and said, is baptism required? He would say, no. Grace alone, faith alone. Absolutely free, as Zane Hodges said. Baptism is not required. Okay, so these people don't get them wet. What's up? He would end up being closer to them than anywhere else. Some of them do not practice the Lord's Supper either. Well, I'm not even sure they're saved. Would Bob Wilkins say that? No, if you pressed him on it, he'd say, okay, you don't get any grace from taking the Lord's Supper, so they're missing out on maybe some fellowship that they could have with believers. They're missing out on that. Okay, let them miss out. It's kind of like, some don't sing Amazing Grace. Well, okay, they miss out on a good song. Number 4. Some of them teach soul sleep, and some teach annihilationism. Now, that is true, and I disagree with soul sleep and annihilationism, and I've said it, and really, it's pretty much said quickly. When somebody goes into the soul sleep or the annihilation issue, they are called out on it. So our friend Brian Ross is, just recently wrote a little thing about, arguing against soul sleep. He's very much in the mid-Acts group. Now, some teach soul sleep. Well, some in the Grace Evangelical Society teach that you don't even need to know that Jesus died, was buried, and risen again. Therefore, reject it. No, don't reject it. Get beyond the sum. Number 5, some ultras teach a form of universalism. Okay, it would go back into the same. I think you have to work really hard to find those some, but there probably are. But I can find loons in Grace Evangelical Society in about 12 minutes. Do we dump them out? No. Number 6, some teach that only the prison epistles are directed to the church. Now, I would take that, and some do teach that. If that's the case, what would be left out? Are these people living licentiously because that's their position? Are they living recklessly? No. There's some in the Grace Evangelical Society who need to read Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, and Philemon a little more closely. So again, we won't go through all of this article. It'd be kind of interesting to do that. But basically, what I think is Grace Evangelical Society, because it's grown, and I'm glad it has gotten into a lot of stuff that is beyond just here's our message of salvation. And so they write about everything now, but they don't have the rest worked out, and so they keep messing up. And I would say they're going to keep messing up until they become a worthless society. So, GES, listen up here. Let's have a meeting. I'll do it free. I'll drive out to Oklahoma or wherever it is you are, and we'll sit down and talk through some of these issues, because I really think that working all the way through North Texas, sorry, not Oklahoma, working through some of those issues would really, really help them. Thanks for that question. Wow, I got so much here, and I'm not I'm not getting to it yet. Yeah, Scott has a good word here. He said, I don't even open GES emails anymore. They're dividing the body of Christ into ordinary Christians and disciples, rendered them dead to me. This is the area in which they didn't develop their theology, and they end up doing just absolutely dumb stuff because they got into an area they didn't know anything about. And they got into an area they didn't know anything about because they became an organization that wrote just on how to be saved. And then they started getting donations, and then they had to write about other things to keep it going. And then they wrote about things that they hadn't developed. And so they're this twisted thing that has taken a mid-Acts soteriology and placed it on top of an Acts 2 hermeneutic, and it's causing them to have train wrecks every time they write a blog. So I'm not far from where Scott is. I'm just that much nicer. I'm going to take one more because it's interesting. I've got a bunch more here. Sorry about that, but I'll leave the name off just in case Charles knows anyone from the IRS these days. My wife and I have seriously considered not paying taxes anymore. Technically, I think we cannot pay by not following Jesus, who tells us to give to Caesar. What do you teach about taxes? I would not necessarily use, though it's insightful. I don't know that I would build whatever my position is on render unto God the things that are God, and unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's. Because I think that would become a fairly complicated issue to figure out what belongs to Caesar. Our friend Patrick Henry was concerned about that. One of his reasons for not supporting the Constitution is because he did not believe that the federal government should have the authority to tax at all. He thought that needed to be done by the states, and then the states would support the things of the federal government that needed to be taken. He was much more a state guy than a federalist guy. He was an anti-federalist. Anyway, you would get into a lot of issues, even with the Constitution as it stands, to say, what is constitutional in terms of taxation? I don't think you would have to be a constitutional scholar to say there are a lot of things about taxation today that probably are not even constitutional. Some would say the entire income tax system, that the federal government has no authority to that. There's some writing out there about that, some of it good, some of it not well studied. I have known people who have taken that position right there. So far, none of them are in jail. I think that one should be very well studied before they take such a position. Very well studied in the sense of, I know what my legal standing is, and I know what the courts have previously determined about my position, and I know what happens to me if they come. And a person might be willing to say, I'm comfortable with all of the above. They might be able to say, I know here's the legal position, and that the courts have supported this legal position, and that therefore, the consequences I'm very willing to take because there are none. Might be able to say that. Now, again, I am not an expert in this matter, so I would hate to do that. I think most of us pay taxes because we were told we were supposed to pay taxes. And it's easier just to do that than it is to, to decide, well, I'm not, it's easier to do that than to do the research. And especially, if your taxes aren't very high, determine on where you are in your income and all that kind of stuff. And here's a problem we have in our society today, in that, I don't know, 40% at least, and it may be more up to 60%, they don't pay taxes. They get taxes. Again, I think unless a couple makes over $150,000 a year, I may be all wrong on this, but the current child tax credit, they're given, let's say their children are under 5 years old. They get $300 per month, $3,600 a year. Not that they have to maybe send back at the end of the year. They only have to send some back if they're making over $150,000 a year as a couple. If again, I'm going by memory and don't study all. So let's say they have 3 little kids. What would that be? $12,000, 36 times 3. I'm a theologian. 10,800. It's unbelievable. Little family, 3 kids, $10,800 they are given by the government. And then they do their taxes, and they find out, okay, we paid, had $5,000 withheld from my paycheck, but my taxes come to zero. So at the end of the year, still they get this $5,000 refund. Maybe they get some earned income credit on top of the child tax credit. So they've had $10,000 given to them. They get $5,000 back. That was their money. And then maybe they get another $1,000 or $2,000 or $4,000 in child tax credits. So they're making $10,000 to $12,000, let's say, from the government. This is why we have a supply problem today. It's because the government young dads used to have to take 2 or 3 jobs. This is what you did. You just got another job. And today they don't. So there's no production. It's a socialist society. We never voted on socialism. Our congressmen, they instituted it through omnibus tax bills. So here's the problem. You've got then, maybe 50, maybe 40%, and probably down to a handful of people that are actually paying taxes. And certainly taxes of any stature. It's a rare thing. And now add in, if the Republicans, which are unbelievably stupid, if they allow the Democrats to move forward, which is what Republicans do, that's what Republican stands for, is lay down and play dead and let Democrats do whatever they want to do. This is what, Mitch does and whatnot. Let the Democrats do whatever they want to do. And so you add another 86,000 IRS workers. The chances are increasing that if you take a principled position, you might take that position in jail. Once again, that's not my area of expertise there. But I think that it ought to. I think if a person wants to study it, go for it. Now, someone who knows, says this is not tax advice, but if you have assets in your name, Caesar can take them and your cash for back taxes. Caesar says you owe. Plus, after a few years of not paying taxes, the interest and penalty will exceed the taxes that you didn't pay timely. Therefore, be careful. Yeah, it's a good word that Caesar takes care of himself. Legal or not, he takes care of himself. And, by the time you work all the way through it, you just may not have anything left. I don't know. Thanks. Okay. I'm so well beyond out of time, and did not get all the questions today, and my apologies for that. I'll come back tonight, and we will do 2 Timothy. Have a good time with that, no doubt, and enjoy some time of Bible study tonight, 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Look forward to seeing you all there, and sorry about not getting to some of your good comments and questions on this busy Thursday. Hope you are having a wonderful time together as we have been able to have a little fun, haven't we? Once again, if you haven't seen it, let's join for our new Sunday series this week, The Mysterious Magi. And I'll look forward to seeing you there for that. Ask the Theologian, thanks. Been good to be with you today. God bless you.